How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lo4f, and today I'm going to go and do a contract. It's on the last set of contracts. It's called Power of the Sun, and for this one I've got to go and deliver. It doesn't give you much of a clue as to what's like where the trailer. It's trailer with parts, but it didn't actually tell me where it was. I found it was on the Institute map, but what I did find interesting is about now I kept mashing the button. I just hit X loads of times on the trailer with parts thing in the mission list, and then it actually brought the yellow box up, telling me to go to the Institute map, which it wasn't before. And there's been quite a few missions on this phase where it doesn't tell me what's going on, and yeah, I just kind of found that by luck, but it's probably worth a go if there's stuff not showing up for you. Yeah, just mash the button repeatedly, and that seemed to fix it. So yeah, I've got to go to the Institute map, grab a trailer, and take it down to like the bottom right-hand corner, and drop that off. And that's like the first stage of the mission. And then for the second part, it's not too far after that. I've just got to nip over to like the rail yard that I unlocked a week or two ago, and there's a warehouse there now where I can get solar panel parts. So I've got to go and drop 3 of them off as well. So yeah, for this mission, this time I chose, in the end I don't think it was probably the best choice for this kind of mission, but I chose the Western Star 49X because I've not used that for a good little while really. I'm trying to think, unless there was some random mission I've used it for, it couldn't have been that big because, that's what she said. I just remember using it, I'd remember getting caught up in some kind of situation. Yeah, I don't think I've really used this properly since, I believe it came out when we had Phase 2, because I'm 99% sure I remember using it on Flooded Foothills when I was doing the gold mining missions, which I never got all of them done in the end, but one of the last ones, I think just before mods came out, is when they released this. So at the minute it's not too bad, because I'm just cutting across the fields, just kind of going as the crow flies. Save following all the wiggly roads. And in theory, I don't know why by the way, there's like a weird different patches of mud on that field. It's one of the ones I've got to harvest at some point. Although, yeah, I'm sort of semi-avoiding the farming missions. I don't hate them, and funnily enough, trying that tractor on the live stream, that's a mod, and it like spans out really wide. You can sort of get trailer attachments, and yeah, farming the field, that was way better. It'd be pretty good, to be honest. You'd feel like you're getting a lot of stuff done if it was actually like that in the game. Almost tip there as well. Got a goddamn horse with me, of course, just for spare fuel, spare parts, and just in case I tip over. And then I've got a crane as well, because once I grabbed the trailer, and I did actually double check this before I got the footage for this mission, I went to the trailer store quickly, just to make sure I could have a crane, the sideboard, and the trailer, like the Holy Trinity setup on this game, where you can actually, yeah, still have a trailer, like the crane isn't cock blocking or anything, and this one's able to. But somewhere along this road, for some reason, there is a bit of a limiter. I think I managed to get up to maybe 7th odd in the end in the gears, but yeah, it's still being awkward. Although I remember part of the reason why I use this truck is because even going back to like Phase 2, I remember using this driving up the mountain road towards like the gold mine section, and there's like this vehicle, there's a lot I like about it. I like the look of it. It's pretty well equipped as far as like the snorkel sits nice and high. It's got 47-inch tyres, which are not massive, but they're definitely not terrible. There's plenty of other vehicles that have got smaller tyres than that. Yeah, the fact that it can have the crane, sideboard, and a trailer is pretty cool as well. Even the horn on it is pretty decent. It actually sounds like a pretty good horn. Probably one of the top 5 in the game or something. Yeah, but ever since I've driven it, it's sort of hard to explain. It feels like it's not got as much grip. It's either grip or revs, or a combination of both. I don't particularly think it's revs. I was even trying to think, is it like the fact that the vehicle weighs not a lot, but I don't think it is, because even just off the top of my head, I think vehicles like the Step 310 or whatever it's called, I'll just call it Steptoe, that weighs like, yeah, as much as Hopes and Dreams and not much more. I don't know what it is with this. I think it sort of feels like the tyres. It never really feels like it bites into the terrain properly. It's almost like maybe it's that drop axle thing, which definitely overall kind of acts as a negative really, because yeah, it's just an unpowered axle that sits in the way, and when you go over like the top of hills, once that axle digs in, there's a pretty good example of it later on in the video that will kind of demonstrate it pretty well. And so far, I knew like heading towards here to grab the trailer, once I go through to the Institute map, the trailer's pretty close to the gateway really, so it's not much of a trek. You, for the most part, like doing stuff on the Heartlands map. And yeah, going like from the garage, cutting across the field was not too bad, and then I was following the road there, so in that sense, like this vehicle wasn't really biting me or doing anything too serious. And yeah, it's one of these trailers that are just kind of, there's loads of them on this phase really, just here and there, kind of scattered around the maps, abandoned in the rivers and all that sort of stuff. And it's like a curtain side trailer, so it's like the 2-slot trailer you can get from the trailer store with like the bars on the side that go up pretty high, and it's got like the double axle on that, so it's a little bit less trollish than like a normal 2-slot trailer. I think when hitting this mud, there were certain sections where, one thing I do like about this truck, even though I just dropped it down into auto then, it does actually stay in high gear. It's pretty lenient as far as that goes. But yeah, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it's almost like there's an invisible set of tyres that are slightly touching down on the road more than your tyres, so even when you're like flooring it and all that, it just never feels like the power quite gets applied, because the engine and that, it's S plus on the power, which again, I mean, I don't know, it's hard to tell how accurate that is, but I was going to say it's a power to weight ratio, so some vehicles that weigh as much as a crisp packet might say S plus on the power, even though, you know, they're not as strong as another vehicle that's going to be like A on the power, but it's a much heavier vehicle. And yeah, I figured I'd turn around. I had a plan in mind for getting the trailer out. I don't really think it went that way too much in the end. I don't know why I was getting distracted by the road signs. See that round road sign I've knocked over on the floor? Imagine the pole was a bit thicker. Yeah, that's what she said. That was like the sign when that guy shot at the air rifle like an inch above my head. They are actually like English road signs. Well, that one is anyway, with a triangle that way. The other one with the triangle upside down, you see a few of them. Not that many. Best not to hit them though, because yeah, they are pretty meaty. They ain't coming out of the ground easily. Well, in fact, I've seen various car crashes. They hit a post over here. They kind of bend a little bit, but they more launch you in the air like a little them like stunt ramp things that flick cars over in the films. Yeah, I thought if I grab it by this winch point, I was hoping to kind of lift it so it'd sort of tilt the bottom around and yeah, it'd work a bit better. But this crane's just not strong enough. Even it almost looked like it was going to start taking me with it, so I kind of shortened the arm on it. And yeah, that's one reason why I like AGL on that 47X or whatever it is put the crane at the back, because yeah, like with this, you need to retract it to like the minimum length just so it's got a bit of like sturdiness to it, and the fact that it's kind of in the middle of the vehicle, it sort of really reduces your options, especially when you're grabbing stuff over from the sides, so now it tries to tip you over, whereas yeah, when the crane's at the back, at least even if you've got it fully retracted, you can still adjust the angle so you've kind of, it's behind you, and then tipping there's not really much of an issue. But anyway, we got the trailer out there. Yeah, in the end I think I just kind of left the crane winch on and floored it forward, and it kind of worked out pretty nicely. Span around, got it done. And yeah, off back to the Heartlands map. And at this point, coming up as well in a minute, it pretty much doesn't matter. It's like I went back and got the footage again earlier. Somehow, I don't know how, I've either not saved it or there was some glitch. Rarely, it is pretty damn rare, thankfully. It doesn't save the footage even when I click it to save it. Yeah, so I lost the footage from like when I go through this gateway to kind of halfway to the next location. So I realised it earlier, so tonight yeah, I had to go and get this vehicle again. And then I've gone and got kind of what this trailer is based on really, because we don't normally get the curtain side trailer as an option. Which, to be honest, they should, because even if they made it an open top, but the sides sat that high, plus with a curtain going along the side, it doesn't catch like these posts. But yeah, you can see now, this is the section of like restaged footage. It really doesn't make any difference. It's only, I've got to go down to there to like, that's where I'm building the solar panel things. And yeah, I only got to there, and that's where like the footage cuts back in as normal. So yeah, I went and got the same type of trailer, drove back to here, got the goddamn horse back with me. So it's all basically identical. Even when I was driving along here, pretty much the same thing happened both times. So there's no real difference. But yeah, it's a right pain in the arse. I hate it when I lose footage, because again, that's another thing where in this mission it probably wouldn't be quicker, to be honest, but yeah, sometimes it's like if I could just reactivate the mission, it'd be quicker to do it that way and like replace the footage that way. But yeah, what I think they need to do with this vehicle is, one, I'd personally just rather they get rid of that raisable axle in the middle. I get the idea and all the rest of it, and it is still cool that they've added like the option to lift the suspension, because back when the game first came out, the Derry 3194 or whatever it's called, that was quite a good example of like a dead axle in the way that, yeah, it was just a complete pain in the arse. But then eventually they added the option to lift the axles, which is a start. But it'd just be quite nice if there was, if you went through like the add-ons in the garage and could have an option to just remove it basically. And yeah, this is exactly the same thing happened yesterday. I assume under here, well, I'm pretty certain, if you look in the water just kind of downstream from where my bonnet is, there's a dead tree in the river, and I assume that's what I'm catching on. Because it's either that or there's roots in the river. Again, you can't really see it too clearly because there's kind of like a bit of white water going on. There's another trailer there as well. So long story short, and this happened yesterday, so I was a little bit quicker with it this time, but I couldn't drive forward, I couldn't reverse, even with low range diffs on. It was not biting in or anything. That's what I mean, where there's like, the vehicle does seem to lack grip. So I stuck a winch from the front to that tree, kind of dragged my nose over just to get me on a bit of an angle. And yeah, I'm going to have to send in the old loaf. Although this time this didn't happen yesterday. Got my arse caught on like the beams of one of the beams on that trailer. But stuck a winch to the that tree again. Wiggled my way out of it. Let's say he's a goddamn professional. Get his whole loaf. Always figure out a way. In fact, that's one difference as well. Yesterday I just drove through the river. Whereas this time, yeah, that bloody tree, I got caught on it again. Which I'm still in favour of them toning it down a bit. Just because, I mean, even like, you can see the ball of roots sticking out of the water, that's that side of it. I've got caught on the other side of the tree, which is only like a twig, pretty much. It shouldn't be that that brutal. But, I mean, it's this section of the mission, really, where it was kind of dawning on me that this probably wasn't the best vehicle to take for this kind of mission. It was good at the start, driving along, like cutting across the field and the roads and all that. It's not too crazy. But again, it's still nice to be cycling through the vehicles. I've whipped out quite a few vehicles recently that I've not had a good reason to use for quite a while. And to be fair to this phase as well, even though I've said I've done more than like the same videos I managed to do in phase 7 before I ran out of stuff. And yeah, I still feel like there's quite a bit to go, really. So yeah, Lo4f, used them as a mobile winch point. That got me enough oomph, which sort of shows in the end. Well, I went a little bit wider, like around that tree, but I did the same thing yesterday, and this Western Star just couldn't get across that river under its own steam. It was getting caught on stuff. So the Lo4f, he's got plenty of muscle. He got me out of there, and then yeah, I just edited now, but stuck him back in the sideboard. Still got repairs, and yeah, fuel, and again, mobile winch point, save me bacon. You see, little things like that, if I didn't have the Lo4f with me, I don't really know. I suppose I'd just have to go back to the garage, get another vehicle and drive over here. Although, by now, I've kind of got vehicles scattered all over the place, so there might end up being something a little... In fact, funnily enough, speak of the devil, there's a Zik 605R and a loaf just on the left. That wasn't even part of a mission, that was just me driving around, having a good time. So you can just see when you get to these sections, this truck really isn't happy about it. And you always notice that axle that's liftable. The vast majority of the time it's spinning around, which implies that it's getting caught on the floor here, there and everywhere. And that's what I've never liked about like the raisable axle. It just becomes a point where it wedges into the ground and it lifts you, mostly your rear tyres off the ground, and that's where you're getting the bulk of your grip from. So there's another tree there. This whole section is a bit awkward, to be honest. I've cut through it a few times in various different trucks, even stuff like the Zix. The Zix can get over here and that, but yeah, this whole section is just a bit awkward. Like that wooden bit sort of looks like it's a bridge you'd drive across, but I'm sure I'll honk the horn in a sec and it just blows that to pieces. And then all this bit to the right of me now is like bits of wood in the water that you don't really get moved or anything. When you do the horn, it doesn't delete them. I didn't do the horn as much this time, but essentially yesterday I kept honking the horn and it was moving all that wood over to the side, so it was kind of clearing a path. I don't know how much it actually helped. The fact that that wood moves means when you run over it, it probably would get out of the way. But yeah, it's all you can see between the trailer and my truck. There's another tree that's laying down that the trailer's now caught on. So I did a winch from the back of my truck to that tree, drag me out of there. And you can see now is the perfect example. That liftable axle is just wedging against like the bank as I'm climbing out the water, and that's it. It's like I've not got enough grip and weight and all the rest of it on the front axles to like claw my way up. And as I'm trying to go up the hill, it's just lifting my back tyres off the ground, so they just can't put any power down, any grip, and yeah, I'm basically stuck here. Which now, by the way, the footage has just changed. You can see now the trailer's back to normal. This is where, like, yeah, yesterday I sort of picked back up from normal. And I gave it a good little go. I was, you know, reversing, going forwards. I was doing low range diffs on, all that sort of stuff. It just wasn't getting out of there. And at this point, there wasn't really any decently placed trees either. There was a tree that managed to get me like this far, but there wasn't anything I could really reach further ahead that just to drag me way out of there. I can see why this ANK got stuck. It just rolled over and died. Give up. So yeah, as usual, send in the goddamn professional. See, you know that'll wade these rivers. It's not his first rodeo. And yeah, just works pretty nice as a mobile winch point. I was initially going to do the winch from the Lo4f to the Western Star, but then it kind of does a default setting on, you know, whatever truck you're winch to, it just tries to drive like, it doesn't, I suppose it probably wouldn't matter in this case because it's not got diffs permanently on and all that, but yeah, in the end it's easier from the vehicle you're trying to get out, like winch from that, and then I can control the throttle on this. At this point with the winch attached to the Lo4f, the Lo4f's just doing like a zombie winch situation where he's flooring it forwards. But you can see though, he's digging in, he was bouncing around, he's found himself a little Lo4f hole, dragged me out of there. Job's good and saved the day again. I had to disconnect the trailer at some point just because it was caught on a tree, and yeah, I was initially trying to figure a way to get across this bloody river. And it was around now, yesterday, when I was considering, do I just recover this truck? This, now, getting this footage was tonight, but yeah, that's part of the reason why I didn't do the video in the end yesterday. I didn't even realise I'd lost a bit of footage at that point, but when I was stuck in that section, like, a minute or two ago, I was seriously considering, like, do I just restart the mission, and should I take a different truck, or should I just bring a truck from the garage and kind of swap over? I've got the Zix 605R in the background, which would be handy. It'd certainly do a better job getting across here and taking the trailer with me, but the next section I sort of need the crane really, for what I had in mind anyway, because I need 3 lots of solar panels and I've only got obviously a 2-slot sideboard. So more faffing around. At some point I then rolled over on my side, just to make life even more enjoyable in this truck. So third time lucky. Well, every time lucky with a goddamn horse. Yeah, send him to the side, winch myself over. I did a little edit there because I actually tipped over twice, but it was basically the identical thing. I just tipped over again, switched back to the loaf, pulled myself up, winch this bloody trailer over here. But yeah, they need to give us like mud tyres for a start on all the vehicles. I mean, this is one of those vehicles that they won't really give us that sort because they kind of force you to have dual rear tyres, which is not the end of the world, but like I say, it's just that axle. And I don't know, I don't know what's going on with the power, because there's other vehicles that are S plus and they feel pretty juicy, but yeah, like I say, it's they've either been pretty severe on like the rev caps, or I don't know, the tyres just don't feel as grippy. So at this point now, you see there though, it's pretty lenient in the high gear. It was me who dropped it down to auto, but it didn't actually try and kick me out and stall or anything. I just figured by now, in this boggy section, it'd probably just wheel spin and dig my way in. And that's when, even wading through stuff like this, again you've got that droppable axle that'll, well, you can see it like rotating. It's going to have to hit all the mud first before you get your rear wheels to it. But yeah, slowly crawling my way out there. At this point I was eyeballing the grass verge to the left. I couldn't resist, like sod following this road all the way along. Low range of the diffs on, which is better with low range of the diffs on, but obviously then you're capped at like a pretty low speed really. So it was random. I was watching that. I was watching a video earlier on that DART mission that NASA did to hit that one of them asteroids, and yeah, they were talking about it. They were saying, oh, it was like a cheaper budget mission because it's they're just going to smash it into an asteroid. 325 million they spent to build that and send it off. Like, fucking hell, that's a pretty expensive budget mission. Give me 324. I'd have got that done. About $1 million left over for an after party. Either that or someone's just pocketed 320 million and gone, yep, it definitely cost that much. Don't know what you're talking about. Who could prove otherwise? Apparently though, it was pretty successful. They were trying to knock this asteroid to change its orbit around its bigger asteroid by, I think they wanted at least 72 seconds to 10 minutes. It ended up shortening the orbit by 32 minutes. So it's pretty successful. And apparently it hit it at about 15,000 miles an hour. Which then I thought was pretty impressive, because you can see these photos as it's approaching the asteroid, and they're pretty crispy clear photos considering. And it had this other little satellite with it called like a Lucia cube or Lycia cube. It was like an Italian thing, a little camera basically that shot out sort of like a day or two before or whatever it was, so it could watch that little dart thing smash into the asteroid. And yeah, it showed you an image of that. It was like, Jesus Christ, did they film that on a potato from the Jurassic period? I don't know how far away it was when it took the photo, but goddamn, they could use the power of imagination and come up with a better image than that. Anyway, we got here to this section. When I drove the truck and trailer into that yellow square, it didn't even pop up saying stage completed or anything. It just kind of deleted one of the mission list things off the top right. So yeah, it doesn't really tell you what's going on, but just touch the box with the trailer, that's what she said, and then yeah, disconnect it and I can go off and do the next one. So I was running a little bit low on fuel, and for some reason my engine's showing up red. I don't know why, because I know it's got some damage, but I don't think it was enough to be red. It was also did the same earlier with the fuel tank, and that definitely wasn't damaged enough to be showing up red. So I don't really know what was going on there, but I fixed some stuff up. I blew a tyre early as well, so got myself fixed up with the loaf, transferred the fuel over, and I think the loaf, because he's good like that, he saved one bit of fuel for himself, so I can always dive out of the way if I need to. And yeah, hoping that was enough juice to get me over to this rail yard, grab 3 solar panels. And you can see now, this was at the point where I don't know, I'm trying to floor it because limited amount of fuel, and I think whilst the engine is showing up red, it makes your like litres per minute, the fuel that you burn, kind of go up as well. So combination of trying to drop the hammer and get there a bit quicker, but I've now not got a goddamn horse of me, which is rare enough that I now know, yeah, I've not got that little extra life of me. And because I took most of the fuel off him, he's got one fuel, but if I rolled now, for example, that one fuel in the loaf ain't going to quite get me over here. So what I should have done in hindsight was probably just transferred a little bit back to the loaf, left him with like 10 or 15, and then yeah, could have sent him in for the rescue if anything happened. But that's why I was trying to drive a little bit cautiously, and the fact that I'd used all my repairs as well, and yeah, this thing started hitting every bloody bump going, smashing everything up. Thankfully it didn't actually pop another tyre or anything. So yeah, grab 2 solar panels. Like I said, I need 3, so this was my plan all along. That's basically why I needed the crane with me, because the only other option with this mission that I could have done without like a crane and doing it this way was Bruce, or that pay star, was it the 5600? And I think I've used that one pretty recently. And then yeah, you can see it's not too far from where you've got to go, thankfully, which was part of the reason why I brought this truck, because I kind of thought the beginning of the mission, go to grab the trailer, I can use roads for the most of it, and all that was pretty simple. It was once I came back through the gateway, getting down to where I had to drop that trailer off, that's what really nailed this truck, and was yeah, having slight regrets about vehicle choice at this point. And that again is why I'm like following the rail track along at this point as well, not risking it on the roads with the bumps and my fuel. Although fuel in the end was looking like it was alright. I think like I say, I was a bit overcautious with that one. Well, it's one of them, because I'm now cutting across like the grass and using the rail tracks and that, you cover quite a decent amount of distance for the fuel you're using. It's once you get bogged down in the mud, that's when obviously you're flooring it and you're only going like half a mile an hour, that's when it really starts to nail you, and you've not even gained a lot of distance for it. So even now, almost tipped there, just kind of swerved into it at the last second. Yeah, just trying to avoid the road so I don't get bogged down. Nearly tipped again. It's a little bit risky going along like this, because not only I've got the crane arm sort of naturally sits quite high doing this, but also the extra box of cargo, so yeah, it makes it a little bit on the tippy side. Again, there'd be better vehicle choices, and if this had something like custom muds that'd sit a little bit wider, probably not much wider though, because it's got the dual rear tyres, so they sit kind of wide to begin with. Not far to go, yeah, just tiptoeing it. Also, I was even new at this point. I'll probably maybe do, yeah, in the end, stick it in high gear. I could have done it earlier and I was thinking about it, but I was like, oh, if I tip now, it'll be a shame. I was now expecting, yeah, those bloody concrete slabs in the ground to just suddenly delete my suspension, but they didn't. When I first set off on this mission, cutting across the fields, it absolutely deleted half this truck, so I only had like 1/10 of my suspension health left from pretty early on in the mission, but then for whatever reason it didn't actually break or do anything for quite a while. Kind of looked out in the end. Yeah, get to here, drop these 2 off. It keeps moaning recently about cargo. I don't know if this was a bit overcautious, but I was just lifting that piece of cargo up in the air a little bit, just to make sure it didn't quickly pop up some thing saying like impossible to load, or there's too much cargo and it'll delete it. But drop the first 2 off, disconnect the crane, it falls into the side bed, pack cargo, 3rd one done. I was checking around seeing if there's going to be an animation, which there is, which at this point I was like, damn, could I have squeezed a loaf into that little solar panel field? Just curious what would have happened if there was a loaf in the way. But yeah, after this mission being a bit of a beast with this truck, so I don't want to push my luck too much. But yeah, there's another one in the bag. Money wise, I think it's 8 or 9 grand, which is not too bad, but yeah, it's just another one ticked off the list. But that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed, I hope it helps. Thanks for watching, thanks to my Patreon members. Get yourself a loaf because he's goddamn professional and he saved me bacon. and I'll be back soon.